Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Val. It's July, which means we're getting to that halfway point of the season, and today I'm going to do a little garden check-in. We're going to look at how things have been growing or not growing in some cases. Talk a little bit about how the wind or the weather has affected things, which it has this year. We've had a very strange spring. I garden in Nova Scotia, zone 6A or 6B. We're closer to the coast, so I think we're 6B, but 6 for sure. And of course, I'll share an update on my gardening goals for the year and how things are going there. There's been a mix of wins and losses, as with every season. So let's dive into it. I hope you're ready for some garden talk. So let's start with the losses. Number one on that list was radishes for me this year, probably due to the strange spring we've had. So I seeded radishes. I've seeded radishes probably end of March, early April. Radishes are a cool season crop. It's one of those things that you can seed as soon as the soil can be worked, which I did. And everything was going fine. Everything germinated. They started to grow. And then we had a really cold snap. And I think that impacted the growth of the radishes. All told, I got one radish out of about, I don't know, 20 some odd that I had seeded in a I don't know, 2 by 2 foot space in one of my garden beds. So one radish does not a harvest make. So that was, to me, that was a total loss. But the one radish I did harvest was beautiful. I'll put a picture up so you can admire it. But that crop didn't do so well for me this year. And I think it has to do with just the strange spring that we had. And it was okay, and then it got really cold, and then it warmed up again, and then everything just bolted. So total loss. So radishes were in the loss category. One variety of garlic. So I planted 2 varieties of garlic last fall at the end of October. One was Russian red, which I plant every year, and one was Siberian, which was new to me, and I figured, we'll give another one a shot just to see how it did. Things started to sprout late last year, probably because we got a warm period in November, and then things started sprouting, which normally garlic is pretty hardy and can handle. And both varieties sprouted. You saw the little green tips coming out of the soil. Winter happened, and then come spring, when things really start to kick in, growth really starts to kick in, Siberian garlic wanted nothing to do with it. Everything just shriveled up. You saw just the tips brown, and they never made it past, any kind of growth. The Russian red did as it normally did, and it's looking great. Got the scapes in last week or a week and a half ago, and everything is looking fine with that one. But the Siberian, and again, I don't think it's the variety. I don't think it had anything to do, with the soil or the variety itself. I think it had to do with the weather, with the warm spell we had late last fall. And it just didn't handle that spurt, and then the winter happened, which normally is fine. And then, it is what it is. Luckily, I planted more Russian red than I did of the Siberian. So the Russian red is in the success category. We'll get to those in a second. Okay, so that was radishes, the Siberian garlic, and I want to put the bok choy and the Chinese cabbage not in a total loss, maybe partial, because normally they grow to a much larger size than what I ended up harvesting them at by the time they bolted. But again, I think it had to do with the spring that we had. It was fine. It was a long spring. They can handle that. It's a cool weather crop, both of those. And it just, when it got warm, and then it got cool again, and then it got warm again. But I think that little warm period that we had just triggered to them, okay, it's time to reproduce, create flowers, create seeds. And everything just bolted. But I was able to harvest quite a bit of it, but normally not at the size that they normally get for me based on past experience. So I'm putting them in the partial loss category, but we did eat a lot of it. So, I'll take that with a grain of salt. It wasn't a total loss. It wasn't one radish. Let's just call it what it is. And then in the wins category, what grew well? Lettuce grew well. It's still going. Planted that, started it indoors, transplanted it outside. Sometime let me check when did I put those out? end of March, beginning of April. Again, cool weather crop. They're fine with that. As long as your nights don't get below 2, lettuce is fine. We had one cooler night than that. I covered the lettuce. Everything recovered. That's not a problem. And it did really well. And I discovered a really great variety called Grand Rapids, which is that curly, that frilly lettuce. Really great. That's probably going to be in the rotation going forward for me every year. Butter crunch did well. Corn salad did well. The romaine did well, which I was really surprised because I had these 3 teeny little seedlings that weren't inspiring confidence. And I planted them anyway. I said, you know what, sink or swim. And they did really well. And I haven't harvested them yet. I'm letting them, grow as big as they want to grow before they, and there's no sign of bolting. The corn salad, there was a couple where there was some stalks coming up, and I've harvested those. But everything else is doing really well. So lettuce is in the win category. The strawberries have been doing amazing. We planted 4 new plants last year, and we had some harvest last year, small. But this year, they went bonkers. They're doing so well, and there's only like 4 plants in there, with maybe 3 baby plants from runners from last year's plants, or from the plants that they threw out last year. And we've been harvesting like a bowl full almost every 2 days since it started, and we're probably on our 5th bowl by now. It's been really great. So I'm excited about that. So that was strawberries. The peas. So the peas. The peas. So the story with the peas was I seeded peas, and I'm looking at my plan here. I seeded them at the end of March, which is typical. A lot of people say that you plant peas on St. Patrick's Day. I was probably a little bit later than that. As soon as the soil can be worked, it's one of those things that the peas themselves, the seeds and all of that, they can handle the frost. They're a cool weather crop. They're pretty hardy. But what had happened was it got really cool. It was that cold snap, and nothing germinated. So I was worried about my seeds not being viable anymore, because I had them for a few years now, and I have a whole bag full, and I just sowed them every year and everything came up. But this year, not one came up. So I was kind of on the fence between, do I wait and give them a little bit more time, or do I buy a different variety, or just a new pack of peas to seed, and just bite the bullet and make sure that I can get peas in this year. So sure enough, I ended up buying more peas, and I seeded more peas. And then what happened? Both sets germinated, so we have a lot of peas this year. But it's all good. Like, nobody's ever said, "Oh, we have too many peas." It's fine. It's in the win category for sure. And all the herbs are doing super well. I plant my herbs in containers on the deck just because they're close to the kitchen and I can grab them really quickly. So they're all doing super well. And then the garlic, the Russian red garlic, they look great. But they're probably one of the tried and true crops that I rely on every year. And I'm excited to have my own garlic this year. We moved not this past January, the one before. So I didn't have my own garlic to be able to harvest and have on hand for the following months in the fall and the winter. So I'm excited to be back in that. So I think those so far, I mean, the tomato plants are still growing. They haven't produced yet. So I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen there. The green beans have started climbing my teepees, which is exciting. That's a milestone. And both varieties. So I've planted Blue Lake and a Scarlet Runner. So both of them have started slowly climbing the teepees, which is good. What else is going on in the garden? Well, I can't really say if the potatoes and the onions, they're growing, but I don't know if they're going to produce anything yet. So it looks good so far, but the verdict is still out. I'll probably do a final check-in at the end with the final tally of all the harvests and all the successes or failures, just to see how we did. And I track that. I should mention I keep a gardening journal. I've been keeping the same journal. It's all in the one book since 2010. And I write down, I don't write down every single thing. I write down the important things, like when the peas bloomed, and when the first tomato formed that I noticed, when the peas started climbing the trellis, when I can start harvesting certain things, just to be able to compare from year to year. and to update the plan accordingly. If, on a bad weather year, this is what happened versus a normal year. And then I'll track all my harvests. Now, in the past, I used to track it just by quantity, like 10 peas or whatever it was. But now I'm doing the number of things that I'm harvesting, plus I'm weighing everything. And eventually I'm probably just going to weigh all of it because it's a little more accurate than counting how many peas, how many beans, how many tomatoes that you're harvesting. So I'm probably going to shift over to weight. But that's what I do. And I've kept a journal since 2010. And 2010, my first garden was a handful of containers on the deck back at the house that we lived in at the time, because that's all the space I had. So there wasn't much. there wasn't much detail in my log. But now, now I just highlight. I just note down the big things that trigger that something has changed, something has happened, just to give me an idea. Like I'll say, I feel like the peas are late this year. Let me go back to last year. When did they germinate? When did they bloom? So it just gives me a reference point to be able to refer to. So I find it useful. And then in terms of the goals, every year I set goals for, it's not really New Year's resolutions. I don't do those. I do the things that I want to achieve, things that I want to do, things that I want to tackle or learn in any given year. And this year, because this is the full gardening season at this house for us in Nova Scotia, we moved in January 2024. So it was kind of a weird season. Mainly grew stuff in pots on the deck, tomatoes, lettuce, herbs, pretty much, and just got the garden sorted out, beds, built and filled, and all of that stuff. But this year is the first full gardening season from January to whenever it's going to end in October, November. And the goals that I had were increase fruit production, because at our old house I had 5 raised beds. Which in itself is still pretty decent. We did generate a lot of food, or produce a lot of food. But I didn't want to dedicate too much space for fruit without vegetable. And one of those beds was for garlic. So I was down to 4. Anyway, long story short, I wanted to increase fruit production in our garden at this house, which we've done successfully. So far, we're growing strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, melon, which they've germinated. They're growing so far. It's early days yet, but I'm hoping that if I get at least one melon from that raised bed, I'm calling it a win. I've had a love-hate relationship with growing melon, but I am determined. And we planted some fruit trees. And what's exciting, last year there was no fruit. They were planted last year, and just settling in, establishing roots, just getting organized. 2 trees, 2 of the 8, 2 trees didn't come back. We're going to replace them. But the others are doing well. They're alive. Everybody's great. 2 have fruit on them. Fruit. 1, we have 2 apples on one of them. They're young trees, right? So it's going to take them a minute just to establish and produce. But the peach tree is loaded with peaches, and I'm excited. Again, if we get one fruit from that tree, whether it's an apple, whether it's a peach, I'm putting it in the win category, knowing that it's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to fruit trees. But I'm excited about it. So the fruit goal has been successful so far, and I think it's just going to get better. I wanted to plant onions and potatoes, because again, those are crops that take up real estate. They take long to become ready, and they were new for me. So far, everything germinated for the most part. I've got yellow onions growing, red onions. Yellow onions are doing better than the red, and then russet potatoes. And there's plants. Everything seems to be growing well. If I get at least 1 onion and at least 1 potato, I'm calling it a win, because they're new for me. And the fact that I was able to grow those varieties and those plants, to me, it's a plus. It's only going to get better from here. So we did that. We wanted to collect rainwater as part of our watering strategy. We installed the rainwater, the rain barrel last year, and I've been filling up. I usually use the water when I'm either watering the perennials on the side, but in particular when I'm fertilizing, because I find it easier to put fertilizer in my watering cans, filling them up with the rainwater, and then just going and watering everything. But it's been great, and it rains quite a bit here. So we've never had an empty rain barrel, or I'm sure it's been empty at some point, but I've never had, I've gone there with my watering can and, and turned the tap on it. There's nothing in it. So to me, that's really great. And what else did I have? Well, there was the big projects. We needed to complete the landscaping. We needed to finish building the garden in the back. That was phase one. That was last year, and we finished it this year, which is, completing all the raised beds. We did like 4 or 6 last year. I feel like we did 6 last year. We finished the rest this past spring, just to get that ready for this full growing season this year, which we've done. And phase two was the landscaping along the side of the house, the grass, the clover, the drainage. It's not sexy stuff, but it's stuff that has to be done, right? So though that was on the list to make sure that we got done as part of the goals for this year, which we did. So far it's been really great. There's been some weirdness with that spring that we had, some unexpected, things that didn't grow as well as I had hoped, things that are doing better than I had hoped, and I'm pleasantly surprised about, like the berries, fabulous. Peas was due to my error by overplanting, overseeding, but you know what? Oh well. Oh well. And then we still have like July, August, September, October, at least a few more months. And I'm expecting the tomatoes to do well. I'm hoping for the melons. I'm excited about harvesting onions and potatoes. Fingers crossed that actually comes with something. And then I still have things to plant for the fall garden. I'm just looking at my diagrams here. You probably remember if you took a look at the video of how to plant a garden. So this is I don't know, you'll probably won't be able to see it, but that's okay. My summer garden, everything is in for the summer garden. For the fall, I'm probably going to be seeding kale when I harvest the potatoes. I'll be planting seeding some lettuce over the cooler, end of summer, fall months. Once I harvest the garlic, which should be, it's July, mid-July, it's either by the end of July or early August, since everything is a little bit delayed. Because of that spring, that cold snap, I feel like the garlic's behind by about 2 weeks. Usually I cut the garlic scapes 2 weeks prior than we did this year, which is fine. And some other things are delayed by at least 3 to 4 weeks. Mostly the summer stuff like the tomatoes and things like that just are taking a little bit longer because of this cool, long spring that we had. But it's all good. Just go with the flow. You can't stress over things like that because it's Mother Nature. She's the boss. You just go with the flow and adapt and, move things around and focus on the wins, on the good and what you've learned over the past year. I'm going to try radishes again in the fall. And we'll see how it goes. Probably where the peas are, because the peas are probably about, 2-3 weeks from being done. And then I'll probably plant some radishes in there, just out of spite, just to see if I can produce more than one radish in a growing season. But it's all good. It's a game for me to see how. Oh yeah, you're gonna give me attitude in the spring? Just you wait, radishes. I'm gonna win. Anywho, so that's kind of my little update for today. Looking forward to seeing the second half of the growing season, and I'm keeping an eye on the things that I'm excited about. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.